Hi guys, it's us again. We have our last Apex World on Air show before the summer break. So I would say we do a pause till October. There will be the next show in October. And this topic will be Kscope 16 news. We all have attended Kscope and there's a lot of things to report. But first, some news about Apex World. Now we got 750 user. Great. And the next big thing, it was it was weird. Then I met Dan at Kscope, and it was exactly a year ago that we talked about Apex World for the very first time. And it's amazing what we achieved in 1 year. 750 people and all the functionality. And people asking, yeah, what's next after Apex World? And we talked about the next big thing, which we are already planning. We don't want to tell too much, but it should solve a problem that Apex is having and will have more and more in the future. So you guys will see when we start after 5.1 is out. So it's all on show when we start. Other news, statistics of the Apex challenges out. So we haven't implemented it yet, but thanks to Insam and Martin for their challenge and for the statistics. So they will be shown on the Apex World site soon. Then we did 2 podcast recordings of Monty and Rule at Kscope 16, and I learned not a lot about Rule, but actually he is not pronounced Rule like I did for the last 10 years, but like the Rule. And yeah, and I just copied his last tweet. So I have the same experience, guys. It's really worth it to learn Apex. I got so much project requests, I cannot handle it. No chance. So learn Apex, it's really worth it. Another thing, we get rid of this presentation resources. I think maybe you don't even know what this is. We plan to collect the most important presentations that are out there for a certain topic, but it turned out that it's pretty hard to make the selection, so we decided we get rid of it. I think you don't even realize it. Another big thing was at Kscope Apex related that Oditag is now sponsoring all the Apex meetups, and actually not only in Apex meetups, but we are only interested in Apex meetups. Maybe Martin, you can say more about this?
Yeah, so we're before we always had these Apex meetups, and everyone was doing it on their own, and we started having requests of people wanting funding for it, and we did provide funding on this case by case basis, and we decided to say let's just open it up to everyone. So starting July 1st, we will fund your meetup.com cost. That goes for existing groups. There's a lot of questions about that. And any net new groups, yes, Dan, so we'll pay for it. And the process is this, it's very simple. Create your meetup.com site, send us the invoice, and we'll send you back the money via PayPal. We're going to do that across for everyone because it works for all international people as well. There were some issues with US money sending over international, so we're going to do it over PayPal. And we really hope that people will get involved, and that's why you're seeing on Twitter the hashtag Get Involved to start up your own local meetup and do whatever you want. There's a lot of questions for people like, what should I do? How should I organize it? It's entirely up to you. Every location is different. So we also have Scott's wearing it, but we also are giving these away limited edition Get Involved T-shirts. Yeah, Scott's showing it, and.
I don't think anybody is seeing it. As still my screen is on. So Scott, you have to show it after the presentation, right after it.
And anyways,
I'll
that's
take
it.
my shirt off if that was a request for that. Sorry.
Well, I'll post it in the chat so anyone wants to do it, and we encourage everyone to start their own meetups.
Great, thanks. What else do we have? Yeah, we had our first newsletter out. Thanks to everybody, to Adrian and Dan. They helped a lot. And yeah, we are planning to issue an newsletter basically every month. We are still talking about that. If we do it every month exactly, or when we think it's enough news to post. But yeah, it was a long way to go. We have this automatic synchronization to MailChimp now. Great. And I have to mention the Tweetmaster 9000, which Carsten did for me. You know, guys, that I have to retweet every tweet manually now because of the Porngate, and it was pretty hard to retweet every tweet manually because I have to click 2 times. I downloaded TweetDeck, Twitterific, what's the other thing, Tweetbot, and all the famous Twitter clients, but none of them could have the functionality to check a couple of tweets and retweet them all at once. And I asked Carsten, and instead of getting an answer, he made an Apex application out of it, and now I can retweet all the tweets in one click. It's amazing. Thanks. And now I see how amazing it is from a user standpoint. So how much time I'm saving with such a simple solution, and you can customize it just exactly the way you like. It's great. It's even more satisfying to use Apex as a customer. Let me tell you that. Member of the month, John Snyders. He did great blog posts. So there are always 2-3 people in the top 3, but we want to diversify, not only posting plugins, but this time he just did the best blog posts about interactive grid and this Ajax, asynchronous Ajax.
Very thorough.
This is, thank you, Dan, thank you. Love it, you have to read it. Yeah, we have to record it on air shows like this one, and the last one we had a little problem. The recording didn't work, and actually also the live broadcast didn't work very well. So I re-recorded it just by me, and it was easy because we have this 10-point bullet list, and I went through the bullet list. What's new? What should be new in Apex after 5.1 from Mike Kitchwa, and I re-recorded simply the answer, so it's not very long. If you want to listen to it again, it's recorded. And the last thing I'm interested is, who is Apex Rumors? It's great that we have this page now, so we are famous enough to have Apex Rumors, just like Mac Rumors. But does anybody know who is Apex Rumors? And let me stop the screen sharing that you can see all of us again.
I don't know who Apex Rumors is, but I'd love to know.
Yeah, I'm curious too.
So nobody of us knows it? Anybody from the chat?
I was asking around at Kscope, and no one fessed up, so I have no clue.
Okay,
No
great.
way. That's great.
Hey, you're on other news. There's just on Twitter. There's been a lot of talk in the last 2 days about apexplugin.com being down, and my whole response to people is it doesn't really matter because go to apex.world. So if you're looking for plugins and you used to go to apex.plugin.com, go to apex.world, and at the top of your screen there's something called plugins in the menu. Just click there. We have a great list of plugins. So that's the new plugin site that the community is going with.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that. Thanks. So let's start. Anything new, Martin, on your side? Let's share.
Do you want me to share my screen for that one?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Karen, can I share my screen? I don't know how to share.
Sure.
So I demoed this, and this is just a quick showcase of using Apex.
Martin?
Uh-oh.
Martin is gone.
Uh-oh.
Too much time.
All other people are here. Okay, let's go on with Scott. Yeah, GoToMeetings crashed. He told me. So Scott, what's new on your side? Any wins in baseball yet?
A 5-day tournament this past weekend and leaving again Saturday for another 2-day tournament. Just converted sumnertech.com to Apex. I know a couple people looked at it and said, hey, there's no F&P URL, you're lying. And no, that's actually an Apache redirect that we do on the front end, so Google can pick up the URLs a lot easier and index them. So it looks just like it did yesterday, more or less, just now it's being served, obviously, as an Apex app out of the database. And that's running live on the Oracle Cloud, database as a service version of the Oracle Cloud.
What's your experience of database as a service in the Oracle Cloud?
After you go through their setup pages, which are less than optimal, is a nice way to put it, the performance is great. It's actually faster than some of the AWS instances that I've played with. It's been solid. Knock on wood. It's just, turn it on, it's good to go. So you also have a lot of, because I've got the actual full database as a service edition. I went in and first thing I did was kill Glassfish, put ORDs on there, and then did the reverse proxy through Apache. So you do have that type of control. So you don't have to use it as it is. Now, by doing that, I broke a couple things with regard to the database monitor that Chris Rice's group wrote, but it should be able to work on Tomcat, and I pinged him on it. We just never followed through as to how to get it to work without having Glassfish in there. But again, 99.9% of my time is spent in the Apex builder, and if I have a DBA thing, I can funnel my way through that different ways. But yeah, I've been impressed with the speed. It's actually quite decent.
Nice to hear. Martin, you wanna go with another try?
Yeah, let's try this again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I completely crashed on GoToMeeting, so let's try this again.
So now we're curious what crashed GoToMeeting.
All right, do you see my screen?
Nope. Now we do.
Okay, perfect. So I showed this at Kscope, so I'll give a quick summary, but it's just to showcase that you can use Apex for a lot of different things. I know Dimitri showed a really great app that he built for his son, and this is something we built for Baby Name Picker, where we were struggling to find names, and we were going through all these long lists of names and getting very frustrated because
I only see the Slack screen.
Oh, oops! Hold on, wrong. Okay, I'll just move everything over.
Oh, now it looks good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We found using baby name books a very big waste of time, because if I already said no to a lot of names, there's no point why she should have even looked at it. So I created essentially baby name, like Tinder for baby names, where we had an iPhone app where this is all in Apex, where if I like those names, I can just swipe. If I don't like them, I swipe the other side, and then at the bottom, I just click save. So we did 15 names at a time. And then at the end, we were able to look at all the different names that we liked. And so instead of talking about random set of names that one of us liked and one of us didn't, we were actually able to focus on the list of names that we did like. And that's how we came up with our son's name.
Great. And your son's name is?
Which one is it here?
The winner is?
The winner is Samuel.
Samuel.
So it's, Samuel.
Would Germany be a boy's name?
Oh, I think Germany was. We both selected that just for fun. I have no clue. We scraped the list of names, but
No.
yeah. Anyways, we chose
better than Pooper.
Well, I would not want to be called a girl named Cooper. That's for sure.
I wouldn't want to be a boy called Pooper.
I mean, the
My
cool
son
thing.
would be proud of that name, by the way.
We built this I probably built this in half a day, not even. I spent more time doing some like tuning around it than actually building it. It was really quick and easy. So
When you pick like the weird spellings like Morgan and Michaela, it's gonna crush your kid when they go to the toy store and try to get like one of those keychains or bike tags, and it's just not ain't gonna happen, right?
yeah.
Great, thanks.
So good pick.
Thank you. Joe, how do you like your new home?
It's good. We moved to a new home here in Central Ohio. It was only 4 miles away from where we lived before, and my brothers always said, the more you own, the more owns you, which I'm a firm believer in.
Yes.
And
Right.
it was a good opportunity to donate and discard 18 years worth of crap, right? That
Yeah.
you just accumulate with life. So that was good, and gave away things that people could get use out of that we weren't using. So from that standpoint, it's great. We like it. It's seen it. Um, the other thing I'm doing, this isn't meant to be a plug, but every year I do a 100-mile bike ride for cancer research. So this is like occupying my mornings before work, as I'm doing a 5K 3 times a week, and I'm riding 50 miles on the weekends. It's just my goal is to drop 10 pounds in a month, which I think I can do because 10 pounds times 100 miles is a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So it's great, though. It helps me mentally during the day. When I exercise before work, it's actually fantastic.
I agree. Dan, any news on your side? Do you have a private life anyway? Okay.
Yeah, I have a private life. Actually, just this weekend was well, technically today is Bastille Day, but they celebrate it over the weekend here in Brooklyn. They have a huge party just outside the street here, so that was a lot of fun. Work-wise, I've been working with some of the folks under Mike's group on package dev, working on one of the apps called Opportunity Tracker, but I'm rolling off that now and getting back into doing some JavaScript, advocating and hopefully blogging again soon. Also have some enhancements coming on the Node.js driver, so keeping busy for sure.
That's for sure. Okay, thanks, guys. Then let's start. What's new? What was new at Kscope 16? So I was the second time, and I liked it even more than the first time. And I brought Michael Dürbeck, my colleague, team member of Apex World, and he was as excited as I was for the first time, and he will return to Texas. So was another great conference, and yeah, unfortunately I have to book all my way to Texas next year. It was great. The party we had. I don't have to say party, right, Martin? But the special event was in a
great networking event opportunity.
the great networking event opportunity took place in a gigantic science museum, and it was all open, so we could visit all the museum parts, and we did even a jet flight simulation, so you can go turn around with your head upside down and shoot other planes. So we only shot we only shot 3 planes. So, but it was the fault of Michael for sure. So.
How many museums of science and industry would you guys have flight simulators? I mean,
it was great. It was really great. Cool. And the content was amazing. Love it. And John Scott, he became the overall speaker award, and of course the speaker award of the Apex section. And he showed an open source solution about Apex printing problems, so printing in PDF and XLSX and stuff like that. And he's planning to bring out an open source solution. And now my question to all of you, but especially to Martin. So I'm at a customer, and we have the problem: how do we print PDF? And there's actually a discussion going on Slack about this topic. What's the best printing solution in Apex? And there are a lot of them out there right now. But personally, I have a problem to suggest an open source solution to a customer. Why? Because I need a company behind it when I have a bug, when I have change requests, when I want to have a new version for a new Apex version. I need a company behind it. I want to pay money, and I want to tell them and push them and say, okay, I need an update, I need a bug fixing. So personally, I don't have a good feeling to rely on an open source product besides Logger right now. Logger is great, but sure, it's open source, and you can always contribute by yourself, but I don't want to. So I don't want to go in all the details. And what's your opinion, guys, about this? Oh, sorry. And by the way, all the audience, please contribute to the discussion and asking questions. And Martin and I, we are scanning your comments and your questions and bring them up whenever it's suitable. So, Martin, what do you?
I mean, this goes back to things that I've probably been saying for years now, and stop me if you heard them all before, but anything you find on the internet that you don't quite 100% understand and copy and paste into your environment is dangerous. Plugins, right? So if you've got a plugin that was written for Apex 4.2 and you have no idea what it does, and you've upgraded to 5 and now it doesn't work, what are you going to do, right? You can try to hunt down the author. They may or may not want to help you. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody here, but just in general, you've got to know what you're getting into. And I think that goes for open source especially, right? I mean, you're right, Logger's been around for a while. It's very solid. It works. But there's plenty of people that if they had an issue with it, they wouldn't know what to do. And that's a risk you're taking. You're getting something for nothing, and it's going to work most or all of the time. But if you want to enhance it, you're sort of at the mercy of the developer, the project, the community, whoever it is that's advancing it. So yeah, I mean, I don't agree with I'll never use open source. I mean, we all do. We're all using Chrome. We're all using Firefox, right? Those are all open source browsers. They're supported in some sense, but unless you're going to go pay somebody to support them, they're just kind of there. They just kind of work. It's like any other tool. It's a new tool. I don't even know if it's been released yet. It may be great, but there's other alternatives out there for printing. So if you want to go into the printing discussion, I think that's a whole different path that we could take. But just in general, just be wary of what you're doing. Open source is good, but it gets bad when the operating system updates and it no longer works. The database update kills it. A JavaScript update breaks it, and you don't have the staff to remedy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is some value to say I rather use an open source tool with a support platform that I pay for underneath it versus just using an open source platform.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like, I've heard actually one of the biggest complaints I've heard for Logger, for instance, is there's no paid support option, so we actually can't put it in our environment, despite the fact that I've been telling everyone tons of people use it, tons of organizations use it. They want that paid support. If we look at, for instance, Apex Cert right now, Sumniva provides paid support for that. So you get the product for free, it's on Aura open source, you can contribute, you can look at it, but then for organizations that have a bug that need immediate support, that's a project sponsor, and I really think that's the way the future's moving in that, and this is not just Oracle specific. Of if you're going to have a rock solid open source project that you want in corporate organizations, you also need an entity that you can go to get paid support immediately. And so I find that a very interesting thing, and it's new. I guess it's new. It's a concept that's been out for a while, at least in the open source community, but it's new for something that we're really pushing in Oracle.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we do it. And Sumniva's dead. You know that, Sumner, right?
Oh, Sumner's.
Different name. Yeah, I know. So, but that's why we do the paid support, is we've had customers who had issues with the install, right? And they could email me, and if I'm in a good mood and I'm not busy and it's just a pure open source project, I'm happy to help people. But if they're a paid support customer, the priority shifts, right? They are going to get a reply right away, and we are going to fix their issue. I agree. I think it's a lot of times, even with a tool like Logger, it's a checkbox feature, right? You're going through some sort of certification that says, even though this is open source, we need a paid support option. We may never use it, but we need to say that we've got something underneath here that, we could call somebody if this does break in our environment.
Great idea. Thanks. So, Martin, what was your most important news at Kscope?
Well, by far, at least on the ODTech perspective, the biggest news was launching the meetups. We've already talked about it, but just again, please go create your own. That was the biggest news. And as far as the Apex thing, there's two interesting things that came out, or at least I thought there was a lot of discussion around it. It seemed like last year printing was the big thing. This year, it seems like workflow. Actually, it was a lot. There's a lot of interest in there. Niles had a great talk on there. And then following that talk, there was a lot of discussion back and forth as to what's the future of workflow and how can we implement workflow in Apex? And we still don't have this global solution but I think it's starting to gather the community together to go forward with it.
And you did,
And
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
You did a great presentation about this. Let me think. I have it in my mind. Electron?
Yeah.
Really? So building Apex applications for desktop, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Electron is a platform that GitHub actually created. And if you've ever used Atom as a text editor or Slack, they're both developed in Electron. It's the platform. Essentially, it allows you, it's a Node.js application that allows you to build in one language using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. It's got a headless Chromium browser in there, and then you can deploy to Windows, Linux, Mac machines. My presentation, by the way, I did say you could deploy to mobile. That's incorrect. I was wrong. It's only for desktops right now. And where I see this, though, is there's these certain edge cases where you need a desktop application, but you also want to use Apex because it does everything for you. A classic example is, let's say you've got a system that you need to monitor a downloads folder, and every time, or some sort of image folder, and every time a new image comes in there, it needs to get shown on the Apex screen right away. You can't expect the user to click, drag, drop, etc. And you can't do that in the browser today. Browsers, for good security reasons. So this is where Electron can sit. If here's your Apex, Electron just sits on top, and it can monitor the download folder and then send the files over.
Okay.
Another classic example that I've heard a lot of people come up to talk to me about was they want to print directly to the printer. So you're in an Apex application, you want to say, no matter what printing solution you have, you want to click print, and it goes to the printer beside you. A ticket kiosking booth or something like that, where if you have the pop-up modal that says, do you want to download this? You download it, then hit Control-P to print. That's too slow on these high throughput applications. So that's where, again, Electron can communicate directly with the printer and then print. When you click from Apex, it will print directly to your printer. So it's a really cool thing. We're still at InSum, where this is our R&D project right now we're looking at. So we're hopefully we'll blog some more about it and showcase what you can do with it.
Great. So you basically say, now I can have an Apex application that can access the desktop resources.
You can access everything. In the Kscope presentation, for instance, I even showed, like, you can find the CPU serial ID that I had. I didn't show it because I didn't want people to rip it off, but you can go with that. You have access to the entire system. And again, the really cool thing for Apex developers is it's all in Node.js, and most of us know JavaScript to start with. So it's just learning a new API. You're not learning a whole new language and methodology. So I was impressed on the easeability to learn it in that sense.
Great.
I missed your talk, but it just so happened that this last Monday and next Monday, the local Pluralsight meetup here in NYC is actually doing an Electron session. So that's been pretty cool to learn about that. It's really exciting technology. You said that mobile's not supported yet, which I heard the same. Do you know if there are any plans to support mobile?
I don't know. I've been looking around. There's some talk for a plugin. I think it comes down to the actual architecture because it runs Node.js. So essentially, you have to be able to run Node.js on the iPhones, and I think it's a CPU. Like they're looking at, I think it's RISC architecture that they have to be able to put it on. So there's some people that are looking into it. I don't know if Electron as an organization is going to change it, but it'd be great if you could, because that would be the killer solution.
Yeah. It was funny. In this meetup, the video we were watching, the author specifically said that unlike what we've been doing now for the last few years in web development, where everything is responsive, and as the browser resizes or you load the content in different devices, it fits it accordingly. He said, like, you don't do that with Electron apps. The whole idea is to be a desktop app. And so if you look at Slack, and Slack is always the go-to example for Electron apps, sure enough, as you resize it, it's not resizing. It gets small to a certain point and then it stops, but that left menu, the primary nav, the secondary nav, and then the main content window, they move very little, if at all. So I thought that was really interesting, and
Oh
I didn't even think about the Apex integration you're doing, but now we need Shakib to make a modern theme that does not resize at all.
yeah. Kidding,
That's
Shakib.
known as theme 24.
Team 12.
Yeah, here's
Theme
the
6.
thing. In an Electron window, you could, in theory, just lock it at a given size. The demo I gave showed moving around, and there was reasons why. But if you wanted to, you don't have to have Shakib. Just lock it in the size you want, and there you go.
There you go.
Great. Dan, what did you do on your on the Let's Wreck This Together talk? So you talked about that chat got completely integrated in Apex yet, or did I get this wrong?
Yeah, no, it's not wrong. You know, we can defer to Joel on this one. Joel, all of Jet is now in Apex 5.1. Is that correct?
That's right. It will be. That's right.
Yeah.
So more than just the data visualization library, we're going to bundle all of Jet with Apex.
So what that means, I guess, as I said in that talk, is the truth is we don't know. It means that, at least for the folks that are interested, perhaps in doing plugin development or just any kind of sophisticated UI, and I think a good example of that would be the page designer within Apex, right? This is one specific page within an Apex application that was handcrafted with JavaScript, right, to deliver that really responsive and the best user experience possible. So if you find that you have a need to do that, now you have this library that you can turn to. You don't have to install it. You don't have to get approval for it. You don't have to do security reviews for it. All that's been done for you by Oracle. And so you get like Knockout.js, which offers your two-way data binding. It can sync your view layer with your view model layer. You got backbone support, so for folks that want like a strong model layer to interact with RESTful web services, do validations, things of that nature, that's there. There's support for Require, so module-based AMD system, just all kinds of goodies. Really, Jet is very, very robust. It's a little intimidating when you get started with it, but there's a lot of power there, and the folks at Oracle are working hard to keep making it better. So I think I'm excited to see what happens next year at Kscope, to see if anyone has done at that point any Apex and Jet integrations, and to see what they've been able to achieve with that, because I think if anyone goes down that road, it could be pretty impressive.
So then I still don't get what's the benefit at the end. So I'm in a web browser, right? I'm in a web browser. So at the end I get HTML and JavaScript in the browser. So what can I do with Chat? What I cannot do with Apex? I still don't get the difference. Besides the visualization components, of course.
I'd
This is
say
what I
that
get.
the biggest difference is moving your business logic into your front end tier, into the browser. So a lot of your logic, which may be written in PL SQL right now, may involve full page refreshes, this kind of stuff. That tends to go away, and you're bringing a lot of this logic to the browser. It's instantaneous.
Now it makes sense. Now I understand your example with the application builder. Finally. So
finally.
I'm gonna ask a question here, because for businesses, we've been telling them for, at least I've been telling them for 10 years, move your data into the database, because your database doesn't change, your front end will, right? Even with Apex, I said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you shift from Apex to something else. It's the same with every single language that's over history. The database is the only thing that stays consistent. So why, can you give me, like, pretend I'm a business owner, can you give me a compelling reason why I should shift that mentality now into Jet?
Well, you certainly can't escape the database. I'm a database first person. I'm still going to recommend folks put that logic there. Proper data modeling, enforcing that data model via constraints, foreign keys, all kinds of stuff, even triggers if necessary, or APIs PL SQL based. But the truth is, that in and of itself is not going to result in the best user experience possible. And so bringing some of, rather, frankly speaking, duplicating some of that logic in your front end can be very beneficial and make for a better end user experience. So I'll give you an example. You think of creating an employee. Very simple example, first name, last name are required fields. Of course, you're going to enforce those constraints at the database level. You could bring that through into JET via what they call the common data model. And this is basically built, at least it was, it's been taken a lot further, but it started as a backbone compatible API. And so when you create a model called employee and a collection based on that model, which is a set of employees, you can define like a validation. So first name and last name are required. Now the advantage of having that in your front end is that instant feedback is provided to the user. It doesn't need to go through your mid-tier, get all the way to the database just to get rejected. And by the way, that not null error is probably going to be nasty, right? And then go through your mid-tier and then come back up to your client. That's unnecessary, so it can catch it right there. And one of the neat things about that, if you're using Node perhaps as your mid-tier, that validation function in theory should be the same function that you can pull into your mid-tier, because you can't trust anything in JavaScript land in the client side anyway. You're going to have to redo those validations in your mid or database tiers. So the fact that you can take that JavaScript function if you're using Node and put it in the mid-tier to ensure that it was validated correctly, I think is pretty cool. So you get some reuse there. But you're right, the database tier is still a little different.
Okay, I get it. It's for nerdy stuff, and at least I get it up and running in your workshop in 30 minutes, and this says everything, because I'm not a tech guy. And yeah, it worked. Great workshop, by the way. Joe, I didn't get the.
Right, I'm going to go on my little
yeah
opinion
go ahead.
type of stuff, because it'll make the show more fun. Well, that's cool, and I definitely want to learn Jet and see what it could do and whatnot. But the more client apps that I see with random bits of JavaScript, and whether it's Jet, whether it's jQuery, whether it's whatever, the harder and the more expensive it's become to maintain these. So your example is good, but why not come up with something I could write 2-3 lines of JavaScript that'll validate any field that I want to be required before it sends that back to the database, and I don't need a proprietary library that may or may not change, and let's be honest, may or may not be around in 2 or 3 years. So I always take a more cautionary approach to this type of stuff. Let it play out. Is it going to be good? Is it going to grow? Is it going to become adopted? What are the kinks? What are the security issues? What are the bugs? Because there's going to be all three, right? And guarantee that before I go ahead and say, I need to take what I have that works, that sure, it's doing a page submit and it might not be ideal, but I've got 100,000 other more important things to do rather than rewrite my apps that work. I've got apps to build that don't exist yet. And that's where I have a problem a lot of times with these newer technologies, is the pace of change is unmaintainable, right? There's new stuff coming out every day, and without vetting it, without getting into the details of it, without really seeing, who's behind this project, is it sponsored, is it going to be around, I always tell people and clients, be cautious, right? Don't be the first ones on any of this stuff. It may go away. Or it's just going to become...
One could take that same argument with Apex itself.
Oh,
Apex
can I?
Right. It was a tough sell 15 years ago. It's not a tough sell anymore.
I hate to bring it to you, but Apex is gonna have his 17th birthday on August 4th. 17 years.
Right. I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying don't rewrite your code that works for the sake of saying, hey, now I've got validations that run on the client, and I've got a whole bunch of JavaScript that I need to maintain now.
I wasn't suggesting anyone rewrite any, especially of the
No, I know you weren't.
types of things that they already have working. It's just for those really sophisticated use cases.
I understand.
And Apex ran into one themselves.
Yeah.
The Apex team at the time did not have Jet at their disposal, and so the approach that they took was more ground up, right?
Oh yeah.
Whereas I think now that Jet's there, you can kind of say, hey, this is how views and view models work according to Knockout and Jet, so we can maybe use that. There'll be some educational resources. You're not starting from the ground, in other words. And Jet, it's built on technologies that have been around since, since single-page applications in JavaScript really got underway. So, that's not as long as Apex has been around, but it is.
But the education factor with that is huge, right? Because if I go into a client and build an Apex app and they have Apex and they understand it, and I stick to all the built-in components, I could be the worst Apex developer in the world or the best one. When I create a page, it's the same. But as soon as you start doing, MVC stuff and all these newer libraries, I've got to sit there and say, okay, I wrote 400 lines of code, and they're based on these 3 frameworks that you have to make sure that you install and maintain. Now let me explain what all this stuff does. And then as soon as I leave and they want to change it, as a consultant, that's a dream because I get called all the time. But it's not the way that I want to run my business. I want to build apps that people could take ownership of. And that's the whole point of Apex.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not saying don't use it. It definitely has its use cases, for the more sophisticated single-page apps.
Mm-hmm.
But most of my clients are, hey, I want to build a quoting system, and I'm just fine submitting the page. I really don't care. I'm worried about all this integration over here and this and that, the other thing. There's plenty of complex problems to solve without adding more complexity to the payload of the solution.
And I had this.
I'll get off my old person chair now.
I had this request the other day, the front end validation. So I'm a fan of dynamic actions, as you all know, I think, and I'm not submitting any page if I don't have to. So the question is, anyway, how do we do the front end validations? And my solution to it is I don't. Because I have to do the validation in the backend anyway because of security reasons, I just do a single AJAX calls to the database, and after change of any field, the exact same validation is called, and I get a JSON result back, and I show it on the screen, and it's immediate. So it is for the user, it feels like a front end validation. So I just have.
Are you using the plugin for that?
No plugin. No.
There's a plugin for that.
Really?
I can't remember who wrote it, but
really?
yeah, it's called.
Yes, I can remember. There's a plugin for that.
Validation.
No, I did it all by myself. I didn't even know that there's a plugin. But by the way, I really wanted to. Now we can do it more, generalize it, but it's great. It's working so great, and I have just one simple layer of validations in my database, and it's so fast. I love it. I don't need to have 2 layers of validations, but this was just my 2 cents. Let me switch to Joel. We only have 15 minutes left. What was 2 things? What's the new hashtag for next year? And what is about the 2 sessions in Apex now?
The 2 sessions? Oh, sure. Hey, so a couple things, if I may.
Go ahead.
I will answer your questions. My takeaway from Kscope 16, if I were to come up with some words that describe it, I thought it was a lot of positive energy. I thought people were enthusiastic. There was just really a great spirit there, as there is every year. It's amazing the number of international people that come to this from around the world, and as well, I find it remarkable the number of first-time attendees at Kscope. Yeah. And I think next year as well, with Apex 5.1, I think there will be even greater interest because I think I'm legally able to say this by Kscope next year for sure. Right, Apex 5.1 will be out, and there will be plenty of reason to attend. And for anybody who's never been to a Kscope conference before, I encourage people to take a look at the blog post from Marco Goritsky from Bylog. It was his first Kscope, and he gave a very extensive blog post about his experience and what he thought and what he learned. And it really was just a validation for somebody who's never been to Kscope before. So
it's
I thought
on apex.world, by the way.
Yeah. To your questions, and see, now I talk so much. So the one was the feature about multiple Apex sessions and this has been an issue that has plagued our customers and people have asked for basically since the genesis of Apex, is the ability to have isolated session state amongst different browser tabs or windows. And I blogged recently about this feature that Christian Neumler on our team is the one who implemented that gives you the ability to have multiple windows all effectively tied to the same browser session cookie, but they have physically distinct Apex sessions. So you don't have to worry about session state in one tab clobbering session state in another. So that was the one thing that I talked about. And what was your first question? I'm sorry, I'm an old man, so I forget it.
Yeah, go more into detail. So you did a very great example. You had two browsers open, and you edited two precedents, right? In different browsers, and at the end, so just to explain the people, what's the problem that you've solved now?
Oh, well, the problem is, as I showed, and I'm going to host a demo application so people can see this for themselves, but it was just a simple wizard where we enter the name, we hit next. We enter the address, we hit next. We enter the country, we hit next. And I had two browsers open, and as we entered data in the first one, and then I started down below, I could see the session state that was entered in the first tab because effectively they're sharing session state. And there's a way to open up a URL to an application for which you're already authenticated, and effectively you will generate a new Apex session ID. We will clone the session state at that point, and now they are distinct. So then you would get two browser windows. You could step through the wizard, and they effectively don't clobber each other. You would not see, there would be no sharing of information between the two, yet you don't have to authenticate again. And this has been a long time problem for customers. The use case was this Croatian insurance company. You know, their agents are sitting with the customer and they're quoting multiple products, and they want to be able to log into their app and have product number one in one tab, product number two, you know, or quote in a second tab, and multiple ones. And that was difficult to achieve in the Apex application because they would all collide, right? Product ID is in one tab, product ID is different here, and so it really makes it easy to have distinct, what appears to be distinct Apex sessions in different tabs without having to re-authenticate.
Joe, you were saying to activate that, it's not like they can just copy the URL or you know, use the browser function to just open a new tab and paste that in and hit go, right? Because that would be the same old problem. But rather, within the app, you add, right? And then what happens?
Yeah, so what happens is, and the request is, and I detailed this on my blog post, there's a request you pass to the Apex engine in the URL called Apex clone session. And you're right, it isn't just somebody could just hit Control Tab and you know, Control T and open up a new tab. You, the application developer, would have to have a way, whether it be a link or a button or whatever, that your end user clicks it, you pop open a new tab with this Apex clone session, and it will actually do a clone of the session, generate you a new session ID, copy session state, and you're all tied to the same browser session cookie. So when one gets, you know, if in the first tab you hit log out, then all the other ones are effectively logged out as well. They're invalid.
Very cool.
Great. And what's the new hashtag for the new year? So actually, we're beginning the new year on every Sunday's, the Apex year on every Sunday's symposium, right? The Apex year, like the Chinese year, they have their own new year, and we have our own new year on Kscope's
Well,
Sunday
the
symposium.
hashtag, I like to think, is still hashtag let's wreck this together, so it's effectively not new. But some people, after consumption of various adult beverages, are now proposing the hashtag are you all in? So you'll see the hashtag are you all in, which maybe we should consider that one as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the shorter version is I'm all in, but I think that might conflict with the Cavaliers there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Should be I'm all in. I've seen both. I've seen hashtag are you all in. I do like the hashtag I'm all in. So we should somehow come up with a blend of that. So you can do both. Hashtag I'm all in or hashtag let's wreck this together. But either way, if you're wrecking it, then clearly you're all in.
Thanks.
They are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Scott, your most interesting news for Kscope.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing how you almost like forget throughout the year the value of the conference until you get there, and then you start seeing the people that you haven't seen and having conversations and talking to people, and it's the networking opportunity, right? I've talked to more people that you just don't think of on a day-to-day basis, whether it's clients, old clients, new clients, friends, colleagues, people you used to work with. That's the true value, I think, of the conference, aside from all the great sessions. I don't go to too many sessions. I had a lot of client stuff going on that week, so unfortunately I had to kind of duck out and do that. But Kerry Millsap's session, I think on the first day, where he talked about just performance in general, not from a technical point of view, but more from kind of a practical storytelling point of view, was great. I really enjoyed sitting through that one. But again, it's more the experience, and the people who haven't attended, that is the real reason to attend, is to interact with people after, to have the conversations, whether it's after one or two adult beverages or coffee and in the morning. That's the value that you get out of these conferences.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And we did the podcast with Monty. It was in the middle of the night, and we haven't been all sober by then, but it was still a great podcast, and it will come out maybe this month. And he also said that they recognized very soon that you can get all the information and presentations on other conferences, on webinars and trainings. But the most important thing is the people, bringing the people together. And this is what he's called the Kscope experience. And he's totally right. Everybody's feeling it. So, and I was a little bit curious because I brought my colleague, Michael Dürbeck, to the conference for the first time. And he's a very reasonable guy and not so, I don't know, would say not so enthusiastic like I am. And he told me the same experience I had for the very first time. So it gets everybody, right? So it's really all about the people. Do we have any questions in the chat? I think yes.
We have tons.
Oh,
So
Yeah, so
Can
let's
I-
start with the first
I didn't monitor. I thought I said I did, but it was so interesting to listen to you guys. Sorry, Martin, did
So we've
you?
got 7 minutes, and let's go with the first one. So the first one's Joel on the new session management, the new tab thing for the cloning. Are collections going to be cloned?
Yes.
So if I just to confirm, I create a collection in my main session, and then I say clone this session, that collection will now reflect it. Are they different, or are they at least a copy? Is it a copy, or is it a pointer, or is it a physical copy?
Physical copy. I mean, session state is session state, and collections are tied to session state. That would be a copy.
Okay, perfect. What's the next question up here? Someone's asking about how is the Electron app bundled? Can we make it installable, etc.? Pretty much, it's an exe or a .app file for Mac, so it's I think it can be bundled into an installer. Haven't gotten there that far, but I'll again check out our blog. We'll try and blog it some stuff about it. Jürgen, do you have any other questions you see?
No, I thought you go through all of them right now. Oh, I see this one, explanation, client-side validation. There's a plugin, a link to Apex Previous Com.
I put that up. You know what's funny, Jürgen, is that plugin is in apex.world. And you didn't even know.
This is why I remember. But I think it's isn't it a plugin that automatically do client-side client-side validations?
Well, you know what? It does exactly what you described. I believe it uses Ajax on certain events like change, and then it goes to the database and it looks up the validation at the page level.
Oh, okay.
And it runs it then, and then brings the result back to
Okay, great. So, sorry, I have to look at that.
Not a question, but a comment.
Similar, couple lines of JavaScript. I have a client where they didn't know what they wanted to be required and what wasn't, and I got tired of them changing it every day. So I built a page where they can pick the fields that they want to have validated, and then built a very simple JavaScript function that when the page loads, it looks at the fields on that page that they've selected. They get included in a list. When they click on save or update, it'll then call the JavaScript function and run the validations for them. So I mean, there's multiple ways to do it. Plugins are great. A simple, 2-3 line JavaScript function also did pretty much the same thing. Be interesting. It's again push that back to the client and say, you can control these, and you can then get to the next level where certain users don't have to put in certain values. If I'm a manager, I don't have to put in this. I have to wait for someone else to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of different ways to address that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, question in here. What about the Apex team doing something to make beautiful Apex URLs?
So, Scott, you can answer this question with your new web page.
I mean, it's possible using rewrite URL to do that. It's actually not terribly difficult. The trickiness comes into how do you handle all the Apex URL syntax, but that's one way to do it. I know using ORDs is another way to do it if you don't worry about having the actual Apex session state ever in the URL. I think there's someone else came up with something else. I know there's a third way to do it, but I know that it's either ORDs, the mod rewrite.
Aren't all those just workarounds though? Like, are we
Oh,
ever
absolutely.
anything
Yeah.
baked in?
And you have to be very cautious, like Scott was saying. You have to, because posting is a different type of URL, so there's all these different things that go on. So you've got to make sure you capture it all.
Yeah, that's the trick, is the post, which you can handle too. You just have to break it enough times to figure out how to handle it.
Yeah, no, sorry. I see the question here, the statement from somebody where they say Apex URL now is not user friendly, and I think that is the weakest side of Apex now. So,
Scott,
I'm not sure what user friendly means, but is it anticipated that end users will modify the URL? I mean, when I go to Amazon.com, it looks like just garbage at the top, and I don't care. And I'm not anticipating that I'm going to edit the URL to go to a different product ID either. So
Exactly.
I'm not sure that's the weakest side of Apex. Search engine optimization, absolutely, I get that. But user friendly, I don't know. The more obtuse it is, the more secure it is. That's the way. That's what I think.
Yeah, right.
we've got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't. We just wrap this up. Dan, the only other thing I have to add is someone thinks you're is giving you a shout out. Dan's T-shirt is cool, so they.
This is a gift at Kscope from Red Pill Analytics. I don't think anyone can see the bottom, so it says guns didn't get Capone, data got Capone.
Ah,
Of course,
yes,
with
yeah.
the tax evasion.
I need to get one of them.
Great. Thanks, you guys. I would say we see you guys in October after the summer break.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you for
Everyone,
joining.
take
Everyone,
care.
have a great summer vacation.